we're in a time, let's face it, where people are just being flogged with negativity and bad news and toxicity and just elevating to hatred. And what we want for this podcast is be positive as a mantra, as an attitude, as something that we can call out in those moments where we're challenged and remind ourselves that we do have optimism, hope, and encouragement. And so we invite you in. Enjoy the BePositive Podcast and enjoy hope, optimism, and encouragement. Flying into the area of conflict in a plane that can outclimb, outfly, outrun a lot of the opponents, if you will, that you're coming up against. Nervous? Scared?
No, I felt confident flying at 30,000 feet or so and coming over the coast of Vietnam. All bad guy land down there.
Yeah.
And it was exciting.
Yeah. And welcome back to the BePositive Podcast. We are just delighted to be at the Hogue Classic here in Newport Beach in a magnificent tournament. Bob, I didn't understand until I arrived the magnitude of the players that are here. So listen to this. There's 34 of the PGA Tour players that are members of the World Hall of Fame, over 400 PGA Tour Stop Championships represented, and over 50 of the Masters or the
Majors.
The majors, excuse me, yeah, of the majors, the U.S. Open, British Open, the Masters, and the PGA Championships, and that's an elite group of people. Pretty fantastic. So we're spending time with Bob Chandler, and Bob, really interested to hear your story, time spent in the Air Force before now spending time at Lion Air Museum, our home base, and it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you.
So tell me about the Air Force.
Well,
I started
at an early age.
Yeah, out of high school or college?
No, I took 2 years of college, and then the opportunity came. I was accepted directly into pilot training. Went into Air Force pilot training in 1958. Had a love affair with flying immediately.
Yeah.
It was very easy for me.
Was that your introduction to aviation?
Yeah, I never had flown whatsoever, but I always had liked it.
Yeah.
But I had a easy time learning. Flew first assignment they sent me to was training, and I trained young pilots for 4 years. Then I went to the love of my life to fly fighters.
Yeah.
Flew F-100s. Flew an F-100 single seat from Louisiana to Vietnam in 3 hops.
Yeah.
Spent a year in Vietnam flying close air support for the Army and the Marines, and went on to fly F-4 Phantoms and staff jobs, Langley Air Force Base. The ultimate for a fighter pilot, I spent 2 years as a fighter squadron commander. Down in Georgia, and my final non-flying job was to the Pentagon for 4 years.
Yeah.
I retired and came to a job in Newport Beach.
Yeah, it's a good place to end.
Came to Ford Aerospace and learned my second trade.
Yeah, yeah. Of those planes, did you have a favorite?
Oh, of course, the F-4 Phantom.
Yeah. That's an elite club that you're in terms of F-4 Phantom pilots.
We were the big dogs in flying the best airplane in the world at the time for years.
Yeah. It was a specialist. What did it do?
Well, it did everything.
It did.
It did. It was an interceptor. It was a bomber, a close air support. We flew nuclear mission. I did that for a couple of stops. It did almost everything. In fact, it was a very, very capable airplane with big engines and big radar.
Yeah.
And 2 people.
Could it outperform the other planes of that era?
It could.
Yeah.
It had the time to climb records, for example, speed records, things like that.
Yeah.
And it was used by both the Navy. They started it, the Air Force and the Marine Corps. And something like 20 other countries eventually bought them.
Yeah.
Very, very popular and successful airplane.
Yeah. Well, we're here at Military Appreciation Day, and I wanted to make that the theme of our conversation, appreciation. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions on that, and some of them are just my curiosity. But as you are heading into the Vietnam War, appreciative of the assignment, or is it in a military environment, in a wartime environment, are you going like, oh, I don't know if I want to be here?
Well, I came from a family of a father that was a combat officer in War II, and both uncles were career militaries.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you went into the military, and I was excited. I, of course, went over for 1966,
Yeah.
early in the war, and things were still more comfortable in this country at that time. I was excited and to go there, and it was the thing to do. It was my duty,
Yeah.
and I was flying fast jets, which was a good way to go.
Yeah. In terms of duty, do you think that's been redefined as time has gone on? I mean, it's so
Absolutely.
common with the mindset of the greatest generation, your generation. This is my obligation to my country.
Well, we've gone through ups and downs in that world.
Yeah.
I think there's more appreciation going on now than there was almost 50 years ago when I
Yeah.
came back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
We weren't very appreciated back then.
Yeah.
I think we are now.
Yeah.
I think there's some leadership issues, but for the most part, I think the country accepts and is grateful for the military.
Yeah, for sure. With flying into the area of conflict. Okay, you're in a plane that can outclimb, outfly, outrun a lot of the opponents, if you will, that you're coming up against. Nervous? Scared?
No, I felt competent.
Yeah.
I remember, though, I was flying at 30,000 feet or so and coming over the coast of Vietnam and saying, that's all bad guy land down there.
Yeah.
And it was exciting.
Yeah.
It really was.
Butterflies in your belly?
Yep, there were.
Yeah.
But it didn't take long to settle.
Yeah.
I'd been well trained and competent, so I felt good about. Chris, getting shot is not necessarily fun.
Right. Right.
But it was exciting.
Yeah. And it sounds naive, but from my perspective, I'm bookended by servicemen. My dad was, as I shared with you, a naval aviator, and my son is now serving in the Navy currently. And I shared with you the story. My desire to fly, to follow my dad's footsteps, showed up at the recruiter's office at my maximum standing height, maximum seated height, and he said, son, if you grow, you're going to get bumped. And I asked him the naive question I shared with you on, well, if I'm performing as a pilot, what difference does it make? And he says, son, you're going to go to eject in certain aircraft and your legs are going to stay. Okay, good reason. So my perspective, having not served and only seeing service now on both sides of my family, I don't know how I would react in those areas. General Lyon, the founder of the Lion Air Museum, he talked to me about prior to your military aviation career, the training that the World War II pilots went through. And here's 19-year-olds showing up, going through 9 months of training, and then flying bombing runs over Germany. And to me, that sounds a little bit short on time.
It was.
Yeah.
But, actually, most of the people were fairly well trained when they went over. Mm-hmm. I know there were short training people that were accelerated. But, for example, Walter Drake, who was an honoree here last year, you may have interviewed him. He had 400 and some hours of flying time before he got to England. Well trained.
Yeah.
So
fully prepared.
Fully prepared and successfully flew a combat tour and in fighters.
Yeah.
So,
with all the flights that you took over Vietnam, ever feel unprepared? Ever had a close scare?
First time I got scrambled at night and flew a close air support mission with a Special Forces camp down below, and it was very dark and low clouds. And I was excited because there was afraid of hitting the ground and shooting bad guys near the fences of the. It was probably my most exciting mission that first night.
Yeah.
Close air support.
Did you come in off of a home base or off a carrier?
No, I was always Air Force, and we had great long runways with lots of concrete most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad described carrier landings as controlled pandemonium. I don't know if that's an accurate description, but...
I would believe him.
Yeah, I would believe him. So we talked about appreciation. You're being appreciated. You're being honored today. What's it feel like now, 50 years later? Does it feel like, okay, and I mean that literally, does it feel overdue, or do you feel like, oh gosh, I'm just honored to be here?
Well, I'm honored to be here. I think it's very nice of the group and people to show some respect for those of us who did our duty.
Yeah.
I was nothing special, but I do thank them.
Yeah. There's it's a perfect segue. There's a quote that I read from General MacArthur, and he talks about humility. Let me share that with you. He says that be proud and unbending in honest failure, but humble and gentle in success. Humble and gentle in success. Does that reconcile with military assignments, being humble in success?
If you want people to follow you, you cannot just yell at them. You should be confident and humble, and they will follow you.
Yeah.
So those are good words.
Yeah. Did you have a nickname?
My best one was as a squadron commander. My call sign, like Maverick and fighter pilots always had call sign. I was Boss.
Boss.
Great call sign. So yeah, I had a call sign for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Different ones at different times, but that was my best.
I always thought that call signs and nicknames, they were earned. They found you as opposed to saying, oh, this is what I want to be called.
Yeah, but I was the squadron commander, and so that was, everybody recommended that, so to speak. But some of the call signs were funny.
Yeah.
And there's usually a reason behind them all. But Boss is obviously clear.
Yeah. Yes, sir isn't one of them.
No,
I think that's the only one I would respond with. Yes, sir.
No. Not when you're flying.
Yeah.
It's there's no sirs and things in airborne.
Yeah.
But a very tight discipline.
Right.
When you're flying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolute precision, right? You have to hit your marks, your precision execution.
Total concentration.
Yeah. Are there things that you did to mentally prepare?
Try to relax, rest.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it was, we were a very well-educated, highly motivated group of people. We were all college grads or nearly. It was and motivated. We were in the top of our profession, flying fighters, and so it was a positive thing in our group, and we enjoyed that flying.
Yeah. With the planes that you flew, obviously you mentioned that the F-4 was your favorite. Were there any other aircraft where you looked over the fence line and go, oh, only if I could be in that cockpit?
Not at the time.
Yeah.
As I was leaving flying, the F-15 and the F-16 came along, but they were after my time.
Yeah.
So no, I was flying the best there was in my time.
Ever in the cockpit of an F-15?
Oh yeah, I've called it the cockpit.
Yeah.
F-15s and F-16s.
Yeah.
They were just a little bit faster and had a little bit better radar, but they were doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Are there limits, Bob, in warfare?
Of course.
Are there boundaries?
Oh, of course. There's lots of them. Rules of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Those were hammered into us that we could not go to certain places.
Mm-hmm.
We could not bomb certain places. There were lots of rules.
Is it the rules of engagement? Now, this is a military question, but rules of engagement, are they followed as tightly today?
Well, I'm sure they are.
You think so?
I think. Yeah, that was hammered into a combat pilot early on and often.
Yeah. Winston Churchill said, and I'm leading towards this quote, he said, "You ask, what is your aim? I can answer in one word. It's victory. Victory at all costs, victory in spite of all terror, victory however long and hard the road may be, for without victory, there is no survival."
Fine fellow, Winston.
Yeah.
Could he motivate us, give a motivating speech?
Mm-hmm.
He was the best.
Yeah. Who motivated you?
It was my uncle, who was a bomber pilot in War II,
Mm-hmm. What aircraft was he in?
B-17s.
Okay, so he's with the Fuddy Duddy Club up
Yeah,
at Lion Air Museum.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But I have a moderately humorous story about
I want to hear
him. My father fought in Italy and in the trenches in the cold and against the Germans. His brother was in the Far East, in the jungles and fighting the Japanese. And this third uncle was a pilot flying B-17s. And as 1945, he came back from the war, drove up to our house with a yellow Packard convertible with his hat tilted at an angle, Air Force sunglasses,
Yeah.
and a beautiful girl, and told me of what they did when they weren't flying. He said, I have to go to the service. That's just the way it is in the 1950s. I think I'll take the Air Force.
I think I'll take the Air Force, right. My dad always said that. It's better to be above the firefight than crawling underneath it.
And it turned out to be a good choice.
Yeah. Your son's here with you today on Military Appreciation Day. The rich history that you have with aviation and your military career, did that shape you as a dad?
A lot. He would confirm. Of course, he was raised following me about, and it was actually the family life in the Air Force was quite good. We had our squadrons were families,
Yeah.
and so you were close with your fellow squadron mates. It affected our family a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain. My wife was happy to move. We moved constantly.
Yeah.
She was ready. Oh, got an assignment. Great. Where are we going?
Yeah. She
So
totally embraced the transient lifestyle.
she loved it. She was a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a good life.
Yeah.
It was an excellent life. I wish more people did it.
Yeah. As a dad, were you a military dad or perhaps softer? What would Bob say?
What?
Putting Bob Jr. on the line.
Military brat.
Military brat.
Yeah. I worked long hours,
Yeah.
and we moved places, and they were in the military too, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was raised with that, and not in a over-the-top kind of military
Yeah.
strictness, but everything was met with yes, sir, and no, sir.
Yeah.
There wasn't any other way. And I imposed that. That was my upbringing. I imposed that on my kids. Everything was yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. And they would sometimes snap back with, Pops, we're not in the military. But I like that line of respect, that line of honoring your parent.
Well, one of the things you learned, as did my children, you learned to meet a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And how many new schools did you go to?
Yeah.
And had to go in and learn how to get along in different places and totally different lifestyles, from the swamps of Georgia to Washington, D.C. Boy, there's a lot of difference.
Yeah. All U.S. based? You spent some time over in the
No,
Philippines, right?
in fact, son Bob was born during a 2-year tour in the Philippines.
Yeah.
We had a good family tour over there. It's our best assignment.
Yeah.
I did, of course, Vietnam for a year, and later I did 1975 a year in Korea. We still maintain big bases and a presence in Korea. So 4 years in the Far East.
Yeah. A little bit different. You're at the Newport Beach Country Club. You're watching some of the greats at the Hogue Classic. Any golfers in particular that you admire?
Oh, sure, Fred Couples.
You like Freddie Couples?
He's a local guy, and I like his style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to meet him?
No, I haven't, but
Yeah.
I was hoping to get to see him play out here.
Yeah. Yeah. He should come by and introduce himself. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'll be out there watching.
With these players, they have a transient lifestyle, but it's country club to country club. Do you think that they ever get worn down by the, God, we got to travel again?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Constantly on the road, it's got to be a strain. And then your whole life depends on how well you hit the golf ball. You know, that's how much money you make, whether you're going to live well or live poorly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of concentration those guys require.
Well, think about that in contrast to your career. Your career is hinged on how well you stick the landing.
Yeah.
To be really good at takeoffs, that's not really answering the puzzle. You got to stick the landing.
Yeah. But it's a skill.
Yeah.
And these guys have a special skill and a difficult lifestyle in my mind
Yeah.
to be going constantly.
Yeah. Squadron Commander, you led young men. You're at Lion Air Museum now. You have a different leadership role. Sharing stories, sharing part of history. You see a lot of youngins that are coming through the doors. And
We talk to a lot of people,
Yeah.
and it's fun,
Yeah, how is that?
enjoyable. You know, about 80% of the time, they're there to listen. Well, about 20% of the time, somebody comes in who is very knowledgeable. So I wind up listening. I talked to a P-51 demonstration pilot. We meet many of the pilots that fly in the Huntington Beach Air Show. So get to meet everybody and talk to a lot of folk. Fun.
Yeah. Fun story. My son was a docent at Lion Air Museum
Oh,
as a young buck and memorized the manual on the history of all of these aircraft and the history of the vehicles that are on display. His first tour was running my dad through the museum. And my dad leaned over and whispered into my ear, "Don't tell your son, but I've flown all of these planes," as he's guiding him through.
well, the only one of those that I have flown should be flying overhead soon. Our C-47 Guinea Bird.
Yeah.
And I have flown and take off and landed a Goody Bird a couple of times. Just that's my tiny bit of propeller time.
Yeah, nice. And fondly nicknamed the Willadine.
Yes, General Lyon's wife.
Right, yeah. General Lyon, we're talking about that, and it was at a time that we're coming up on our 25th anniversary. And I said, "General, I don't know if I can buy a plane for my wife for our anniversary." But he did. That was an anniversary gift to his wife.
Well, he told me one of his finest gifts was a Mercedes 560, one of the most expensive cars in the world.
Yeah.
Was a gift from his wife to him.
Nice. Nice. So going back to the kids that you tour through the museum, do they have an appreciation for the docents that are there? I mean, it's mostly aviators that have flown these planes.
Well, we actually have formal classes, of course.
Yeah.
I give you one story. I was taught the classes for some years. We teach the Newport Mesa school groups come in an arranged program, and I met a woman a day after class, and she found that I was a teacher at this. She said, My daughter was there, and she thought that was the greatest class she'd ever had.
Nice. Nice.
So some of the kids listen and learn and enjoy. Some don't.
Yeah, sure.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy enjoy teaching flying, and I enjoyed teaching the kids a little history.
Do you miss the cockpit?
No, had
When
enough.
you were done, you were done.
When I was in my 40th year, I suppose, when I flew my last airplane, I said, that's enough.
That's enough.
5,000 hours of high performance flying
Yeah.
was enough.
Yeah.
I tried flying a little light planes a little bit, and just not the same.
No, there's something about 120 knots that's not going to give you any sense of.
No, it just didn't do it for me.
Right. So we're at the end of our show, but I want to ask you one question as we finish up, and that is, when you look back at this rich career, this rich set of experiences that you've had from around the world, relationships around the world, is there a moment or an experience that you've carried all the way through that left an impression or helped shape and form who you are today? What comes to mind?
I don't know that there was any one event that triggered it. I had a number of successes as I moved on from one to another. I think that all led to positive. I got to fly better airplanes. I got promoted. I had better jobs. I think it was just lots of small steps that led me to where I am, and a very happy, full career, and was look back with a smile.
Yeah, I like that. And a sense of positivity, a sense of optimism, which is the cornerstones of our show, Be Positive. It's about optimism, about hope, about encouragement. I appreciate your stories and spending some time with us. We're going to have some fun watching the Willowdene do a flyover here in a few minutes.
Yeah, okay.
And really appreciate our time together. Thank you, Bob Chandler. Thanks for joining us on the Be Positive Podcast. You can find us at YouTube, Spotify, Apple, on social media at Be Positive Cause, or at our website, bepositive.life. This is the home of optimism, hope, and encouragement. We invite you to join us and become an ambassador of optimism.